I will say I tried to get plenty of people, but people are busy. I guess it's a busy time of the year. I didn't know that.
I have no idea. I am kind of personally busy right now, but other than that, I don't know. It occurred to
Big,
me yesterday, holy shit, it's midway through February. I'm like, huh. So
big
that's
President's
kind of
Day
where I'm
weekend.
at.
Is that what
I'm sorry, what?
big President's Day weekend plans or something?
Oh, no, no. The days kind of run together. They're pretty much the same for me at this point, so.
That's good. This is the Experience Podcast with me and someone else.
Oh, yes, I keep forgetting. You'd think I'd know this by now, but that is the cue, the subtle cue that dipshits like me have to be reminded. Hello, I'm Chase. I'm back.
I was going to wait as long as it took for you to
As
speak.
awkward as possible.
For our listeners, it's just us today. Yeah, like I was saying, I guess people are busy. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if there's a separate group chat to avoid me. Like they're talking like, oh, don't go on this week, whatever.
Oh, it's that Chase guy. God knows.
Well, they didn't know it was you. Maybe that would have sold it. I don't know.
Get some magnetism going on or something.
Yeah. So it's for the first time in a while we're slightly behind schedule on our podcast recordings, but we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
Wow.
Well, no, we're still releasing them on time, but.
Oh, I see.
This one's kind of, and I have to work. Well, I got scheduled for overtime Monday night, so I'm really crunching here.
Oh, geez, that sucks.
Well, I'm working through the weekend or something. That's why we're doing an afternoon for listeners. Normally we do evening recordings for.
Oh, you have to work on the weekends?
I'm working tonight, tomorrow. Well, I worked the past couple of nights, and I'm working through the Monday night. So every night,
Damn.
Thursday night, Monday night. So that's why we're doing like a 3:00 recording today. I chose Saturday because I figured you wouldn't be too busy. But...
No, and I definitely like to make time, especially for special people.
Oh, well, you'll have to let me know who those people are.
Some guy named Daniel and some other guy named Owen, I guess. I don't know. I heard the name somewhere. A little birdie told me.
Owen's at a wedding this weekend.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. For someone, I guess she was in the color guard. Or not, sorry, not Rush. She's in Gold Rush.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the, I was actually looking back at some of the band photos and such. Last time I was there, it was just 2018 and 2019. I was like, damn, that was a couple of years ago at this point. God, hasn't time just felt accelerated the past like 2 or 3 years? Like, I don't know, like post-COVID, I just don't know what a day is supposed to feel like anymore.
Well, I think also, post-COVID, you transitioned out of college into a full-time job. So there's some life, for people our age, I guess there's significant life changes already in place. So even that starts to come together,
Yeah, I think the planet is undergoing changes, period. I mean, you think about
that due to,
well, not just COVID, but you think like the internet speeding everybody's life up. Everyone's got a device now, and we all just we're kind of living reaction to reaction, honest to God. And so it's like it doesn't feel like there's almost any time to sit down and like 2 days ago, I just had some time finally to sit down and just kind of relax, and I was in pain. I was like, oh God, I just can't move right now. So I will just sit here. And I was like, that's what it feels like to relax. I was like, that's kind of nice. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, okay, fuck, I need to be doing something. My body's screaming at me like, no, sit down more.
I forgot my question. Sorry, I'm multitasking because I got to type the show stuff and everything.
Mhm.
Do you? It's gonna come back to me in a minute or so here.
Yeah.
Relaxing. Where was I going? No, there wasn't anything. All right. Well, I guess so. What do you mean by what are you busy with? I guess what goes. Maybe.
Well, glad you asked. So I have alluded to it the past couple times I've been on, but I have a more complete story to tell now because we're kind of, well, we can in this, with just you and me. But essentially, I've been on the good old trauma journey, digging up skeletons in my personal closet, so to speak. And that has been consuming my life for months now. But fortunately, it is about to be at an end because I have done an extreme amount of work on myself, and that is paying dividends in many ways. So the most recent of which has been discovering, I got an MRI done a couple months ago, and I got the MRI, and the doctor pulled me aside and he's like, I need to talk with you, bro, because we need to talk about your brain. I'm like, my brain, you say? And I was like, why is that? And he like, take a look at this. And he shows me that, the chemical tracers or whatever. It's like, you see like all these areas of your brain that aren't active, that are discolored. That is a catastrophic amount of brain damage. And I was like, oh shit. Seriously? And so once I learned that, I was like, okay, all of a sudden a lot of things are making sense. Lots of things are starting to make sense. And ever since then, I have been, well, like, okay, I did not know that I had severe brain damage from the moment I was plopped into the world or something. Let's try to fix that. So a lot of my time nowadays is consumed by various neuroplasticity exercises and trying to engage in a lifestyle that kind of promotes brain health and regrowth. And I gotta say, that has been so worth it because I'm actually noticing physical and cognitive benefits that I didn't even know I could have. And like I said, this was something I didn't even know was a problem because I figured, well, I had a rough childhood, but I survived it. So I went to Georgia Tech. I'm smart. You know what I mean? But no. There was significant damage, and I can feel things worming around in there sometimes, and so I know it's getting better. That is for sure.
And for our listeners, keep in mind, Chase is I guess maybe aside from that, you're a pretty healthy person. You're young. We're not talking to an old man, too, right?
No, I'm 26.
Yeah, so this is pretty significant in terms of where you are in life to be dealing with this sort of thing.
It is, and I do want to. And I will be happy to talk about it in public or private because considering what I've been through, I understand firsthand what childhood trauma will do to you physically, mentally, spiritually, anything like that. And it leaves permanent damage with you. That's why a lot of people, they're walking around out here, they seem ostensibly healthy, but if you look real hard, they're not. And part of the, I believe, mental health epidemic is this profound damage that even just like something as, I won't say mundane, but as frankly commonplace as narcissistic abuse, especially in early childhood, that reforms your brain. It literally causes your brain to grow in a way that is going to manifest in this kind of depredation mindset, in this kind of I'm not worthy, especially if you're an empathetic person. It will cause your brain to develop in a way that is survivalistic because it learns from the damage. You can't fully express the human being underneath because you'll be tortured or abused. And so 20 years later, you're in your 30s, and you're wondering, gee, why can't I connect with my woman or whatever, that I've had for years, maybe not in our case, but, why am I having marital problems? Why do I not feel like I can be fully emotionally available for my wife? And all of a sudden, that's when people are told, oh, well, let's go to therapy. And that's when you start exploring your childhood. And that's always a good first step, but it's a lot more complicated than that for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know if you answered this directly or if you want to, but do you think, or if you know the answer, do you think that your situation that you're in now is a result of things that happened earlier, like completely earlier in your life, or it's a mix of like earlier in your life plus you were kind of born with this already and, there's no way out. Here's where you are now.
So I believe fundamentally that people are born by and large healthy. Now, obviously there's some exceptions with some genetic defects, some, let's say you have fetal alcohol syndrome. Those people are kind of fucked from birth. But by and large, if the mother's pregnancy is relatively healthy, everyone is plopped into the world pretty much healthy. There's a lot of stable genetics there that I think people are underestimating now. But the problem is, especially that early childhood when you are so vulnerable, when you are so spongiform, if you will, and you just soak up anything in your environment, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you can have, for instance, I had and still have an incredible mother who's done everything she can for me throughout the years. It was my father that was the human incarnation of evil, if you will, in every way possible. So when you have that in your household and you're just exposed, and to answer your question more directly, I think personally it started very young for me, before the most significant trauma of my life, during it, and then even throughout my teenage years as I was growing and was still in a rough place, like financially, psychologically speaking, things that just happened that kind of pile on to what was a just nightmarish childhood. And I don't like necessarily, I would say, bringing attention to myself or saying, aha, I had it so bad or whatever. But objectively, I had it really, really poorly. And I can go into details if you'd like, but it depends on where you want to take it. But to answer your question directly, I think it was early childhood is when it started, and that was the profound, the most of the damage was done then. And then it just kept piling on for years, and that's why it's taken me a long time now to kind of heal a lot of the trauma and to physically, get to where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into the specific what happened. That's obviously up to you. If that's even good content, I don't even know. Well, maybe perhaps the better is sort of explaining how you can help other people go through a similar situation, like maybe what you learned through it. It would probably be more beneficial, but sure. It's up to you. I don't know. So this is just a Saturday, right? This
is, I will tell you, if I go into full details, this will be a very, very dark episode, but it will have a happy ending. So, it depends on how dark you want me to go. Do you want the full story? Because sometimes I do think it is helpful for people to hear.
Maybe it is. I obviously I'm open to whatever. This show has no, course or anything like that. We don't have any specific content. But yeah, it's up to you. I don't know, what you want other people to get out of it, I guess. But maybe that's what you're going to talk about.
Well, I will say I do prefer to share my story so that it can be inspiring, kind of a message of hope, because I didn't realize how fucked up I was until I completed this journey. And considering how much work I've done on myself, it is an example of the human potential that anybody can do. I mean, anybody in terms of their particular life path can absolutely heal more than people realize. And that's kind of an important message in what is a very fucked up planet right now.
And keep in mind, and you already mentioned, it's not always obvious on the outside, right? I've known you since, 15 years
2015.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say you displayed any signs of this at all.
Well,
and I've known you on and off, but yeah.
Yeah, well, the fucked up thing was I wasn't aware of a lot of this. I wasn't aware until I did a deep dive, all kinds of weird techniques and lots of remembering and lots and lots and lots of work to piece together the majority of my story. There's still bits and pieces that are missing, but I have the overwhelming, kind of story arc. So that's kind of, and I am happy to share it. I mean, I say happy because it sucked, but it was, like I said, if I can do anything in terms of taking the lessons from it, it's that the human potential to recover from all kinds of shit is vast. And I think, especially given our history, and especially in a COVID world, dramatically underestimated. So.
Yeah, then I would say go ahead. I would say let's see where this takes us.
All right. So I was born actually in Macon. My father is the primary culprit. He is an impressively evil person. I will say that. Just when you don't think this creature could get any worse, he does, which I find quite impressive, on a kind of sick and fascinating level. Like I said, my mom's basically a saint. Honest to God, she was a nurse, continues to work in healthcare, incredible woman. So I was born in Macon, 1997, and we were a relatively ostensibly stable family for some time, a couple years there. I had some, kind of quality time. My mom was really involved in kind of my early childhood education, so I was kind of growing along. I was actually growing at a bit of an accelerated rate from what she tells me. My dad was at the time he was already an alcoholic. He was already verbally abusive, not a caring parent, that kind of thing. But basically what happened was he snapped because he was already a dick. And my mother realized her mistake ending up with him, from details about her that I will keep private. But what happened was she divorced him and he lost his shit. And he just he changed that, during that period. And so he got violent with both of us. So I have a distinct memory of him throwing me across the room, so he could beat my mother in front of me. That was one of the first major things I saw. And so, and without going, I don't want to drag my mom too much into this, but there were significant fights. She got out, and unfortunately, the state here did not believe her fundamental story about how evil a piece of shit he was. And so the problem was the state granted us joint custody, right? So 1 week with dad, 1 week with mom, in an attempt to be fair. Now, this was after lengthy divorce proceedings where my father was obsessed with destroying my mother, financially, emotionally, and otherwise. This is when his drug abuse started. Cataclysmic free fall into oxys, alcohol, methamphetamine, marijuana, you name it. He was on it. It's actually quite impressive he survived some of this problems. He also, as I've come to understand, began hallucinating. He heard and saw things that weren't there, and he had significant brain damage and still does to this day. So that was an extra factor You also got to factor in how much anger he had from his childhood, but also from the brain damage, emotional disorders being largely in the brain. And so all of that potent cocktail made this piece of shit just into the most evil person. I mean, he was on a mission to destroy people. So we went to this mom and dad custody situation starting when I was 5 years old in 2002. Now, that was never stable, I will say, but it was 1 week on of being with an abuser because he was a narcissist, a sadist, and he was not a good parent. I was essentially property to him. I was never a son. I was something to be used. I was something to be manipulated. I was something to I have a child, look at my son, that kind of thing. He was not capable of giving love. And unfortunately, my mom fell on hard times, and although, I won't go into that side because she tried her best, and I'm always grateful for that because she was the light of my life at that time. And so 1 week, it was in a different kind of physical hardship, but with a real parent. And in the other week, here comes the major problem. So starting in 2002, for whatever reason, my father took a liking to me. And starting in 2002 is when he started raping me. He would drug me. He would drug me and have sex with me in the kitchen. And then he would take me back to bed. And it took me a long time to realize what he was doing, and he did it for years. But that was the fundamental damage. It began in 2002, and it went on for years. The worst part was we eventually moved to a different house. And I don't know if he fucked up the drug dosage one night or several nights, actually. But I was awake when he did it. And I had this dream that I've had for years. It was what I called a dream. But what it was my brain trying to make sense of being awake when I was 6 years old being raped. Because it wasn't a dream. It was a damaged, fucked up memory, but enough of it was through, or enough of it was laid down then for me to know it was real. It was frankly hallucinogenic, but the physical sensations that I remember were there. So I was awake several times for him raping me. We moved again, and the abuse, I honestly don't know when the rape stopped. Probably several years, I would imagine, until he got tired of it. But I know it was hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. And all the while, no one knew. Absolutely no one knew. On top of this, my father, as I'm growing up with him, after he spiraled when he snapped, his personality would swing violently. So he would be sympathetic, all kinds of, there's a term in the narcissist dictionary or whatever you would call it for it, that he would be, he would be love bombing you. He would be, all nice and in fact sympathetic or whatever. Next morning, he's a raging asshole. Constant alcohol, day drinker, at least 10 or 11 Budweisers a day, hard drugs, and he would try to hide the drugs from me, but you could smell it. You can see it. You can see the bags under the eyes. You can see the peeling skin. You can see a lot. And ironically, he used to say I wasn't very perceptive, which was hilarious. So furthermore, on top of this, he was just an abusive piece of shit, an alcoholic. He was a big believer in corporeal punishment, so he would beat me, he would spank me when he was dissatisfied with whatever behavior I did. And then he was a big fan of grounding and taking away things from people. He was a very big manipulator, control, manipulation, abuse, etc. And so that was my childhood, one half of it. The other half was with, like I said, a real parent, in financial hardship, right? Then my teenage years, finally, I was old enough where I was not aware that he had raped me or anything like that, but I was not aware of what he had done, but I left him anyway. It was in late 2011. I left him that year. And this was after one night where, I don't know if the guilt was eating him away or something, but he was slobbering drunk on the couch one evening. And he was simply like, Chase, I love you a lot. And I just want to tell you, you don't have to stay with me if you don't want to. You can just fucking leave me. And this was after the same night he had fallen down the stairs to the basement. Shame he didn't break his neck. And so I was 14 at the time. I was like, okay, bye. And so he was like, well, and narcissists, one of their forms of punishment is they ignore you. They give you the silent treatment and they pretend you don't exist because they think they're punishing you. Because narcissists, that's part of NPD, is if you don't give them constant attention, they freak the fuck out. So he thought that was his form of punishing me, honestly. And so I didn't see him again until high school graduation. Oh wait, hang on. He came to a band game in high school once. And he looked gray and terrible. And so that was the big story of my childhood. Rape, abuse, drugged, manipulation. And ultimately what that led to was a hideous brain damage rather. I had an anger disorder. So any of my triggers would set me off for hours. I had anxiety. I had generalized anxiety disorder. I had clinical depression. I had overwhelming suicidal ideation for years. At one point, I had a voice in my head telling me to kill myself. I would hear a voice in my head telling me to kill myself. And I never knew why, but every now and then it would crop up, right? And it wasn't simply the emotional center, because the right hemisphere of my brain was just torched, right? I had huge difficulties emotionally connecting with people, massive anxiety. I had intimacy issues. For years, I thought like my sexuality was, I have no idea what that was. I was always confused about it, even when I knew I was gay. And so all the right side stuff of the brain, because the right hemisphere was the one that was on that MRI, was just, it was a disaster. But even on the left side, there were certain limits to my logical reasoning, to my spatial reasoning, to, the left brain stuff, certain calculations, certain things that I could visualize in my brain. Visuals continue to be a struggle for me as I'm healing that. But I realized that there were certain paths I took through, let's say, my physics career at Georgia Tech that I was limited by because I didn't have the cognitive capacity to understand. I literally would get to a certain point and then not be able to process information. So I'd find these kind of heuristics to kind of trick my brain into knowing things, and then I would fuck up tests because of it or whatever. But yeah, so discovering that, the summation of that story is that regardless of kind of what you think may or may not happens, what happens is you suffer severe damage cognitively. Abuse in early childhood literally changes your brain. It leads to all kinds of hideous shit. And then I discovered something else. Now, this is going to get into a bit of a hokey land for some people. So I ask you to keep an open mind. However, there's another component to it that is kind of underrated and not very scientific. But this was something I learned is real. and has to be addressed. So as you can remember from physics or whatever, there are energy ranges outside the visible light spectrum that interact with the human body. So there are ways that these energies influence you that damage you. I mean, physical energy. And there is, I believe, something I will call an energy body, for lack of a better term. That being just this, think of it like an organ system that's stacked on your other organ systems outside the visible light spectrum. This is something that I discovered during my trauma journey because I started purging things from it. I would, for example, hyperventilate. And I thought at first, oh, that must just be a panic attack of some kind. Except I felt things removed from my body. That's the only way I can describe it, is I literally felt things removed from my body that you can't see, which I thought I was losing my fucking mind. Honest to God, I thought it was absolutely absurd. I thought I've lost my marbles. I'm just completely batshit crazy now. But that part's real too. I don't know what that is. I continue to be, despite dipping my toes into religion, spirituality, etc., I continue to be a very rational person, and I need proof and evidence for things. But what I experienced purging energies, for lack of a better term, was so real I can't deny it. Which is frustrating because I know now there is an energetic component to healing that is underappreciated, especially in Western culture. But I can't prove it to you, which is exceptionally frustrating because it's not something I can see. However, I will stress that this is something, and I think honestly that's what people are talking about when they're talking about like crystals, you know the new age kind of crap you see. That's what people are talking about with crystals is, oh, well, they vibrate your chakras or whatever. I don't know what the hell they do, but I bought a couple and they helped me purge some crap. And so I don't know what the hell, like I said, this has all been completely new for me on my journey. So that was part of the purging, was cleansing what I'll call the energy body, for lack of a better term. I think of it like an organ system on top of the other ones. And then there was dealing with the brain and the brain damage. So the brain damage is, when I got that MRI a couple months ago, because I'd been, cleansing and purging, that kind of stuff for a long time at that point. And like you said, I've always kind of taken care of myself physically, especially once I got into college. I've been lifting, I started cardio and when I went to college, and I was lifting about a year after that. And I've been lifting for like 6 or 7 years now. So that gave me a nice physical baseline to improve my physical health, because my physical health, especially throughout my teenage years, was terrible. And it was junk food, depression. I mean, it was just not good. So I slowly improved my diet over time to where, now I eat very clean. I do a lot of cardio now. And all of this, I've, kind of read the research on neuroscience and neuroplasticity, because when I saw that MRI, I was like, oh my God, I have got to try, right? Because I've already done so much work on me. What if I can fix some of this? So I dove into the literature, dove into, all these things. So things like berries are good for you. High intensity cardio, good to get the blood going. Intermittent fasting, which I was already doing for years, kind of helps the apoptotic process that helps kill and flush out the bad cells in your body, including in your brain. And then, I mentioned the crystals. I don't know if they do anything. And if you have time later, I will discuss what I believe to be an untapped branch of physics through my journey, but that's for a later time. But in terms of the brain damage, a lot of like memory exercises, lots of like there's certain music. So I don't know if you've heard of like binaural beats or anything like that, but I listen to various different kind of frequencies daily. Those are demonstrated to have some sort of neurocognitive benefits in the sense that they get your brain into these different wave states and like I don't exactly know what's happening physiologically, but I know psychologically they kind of help me work through a lot of the bad, dark parts in my head. And I literally feel like things moving in my skull, if that makes sense. And I know, and I'll kind of now transition to the optimistic side because understandably everything until now has been dog shit terrible. But the optimistic side is through a number of lifestyle factors. And I will say right now, I truly believe there's no one size fits all solution. But when I saw that at MRI, I was like, all right, I got to try everything, including shit that I, either didn't believe in or was suspicious of. Like I said, crystals and fucking sage and shit like that. I absolutely do that daily. I don't know if they work or not. I think they do though. But, cardio, I continue to lift, but I've switched mostly to cardio, get as much sun as you can. I try to, get out in the sun every day, at least like half an hour if I can. I know people like 10 minutes a day, but half an hour works for me. Again, I changed my diet to match the literature as much as possible, whether it was fruit, usually lots of fruits and vegetables, berries in particular, avocados. Those are supposedly very good. Doing these, different music therapies, these, binaural beat things, these like 40 hertz, I don't know what, like 40 hertz is one of the particular frequencies that supposedly does something. I feel it doing things. And that's how that's my barometer for bullshit, if you will, because I'm very familiar with snake oil salesmen at this point. And if I don't feel it doing an effect, I don't bother. But basically through a combination of all these lifestyle changes, I was able to significantly improve my health to where now, to give you kind of a before and after, before I didn't even realize how much pain I was in. I was in agony, like physical pain. I had no energy. I slept like garbage. I had all kinds of mental illnesses. I mean, call a spade, right? I have cured my depression. My depression I suffered with for a decade is gone. I no longer have anxiety. Period. Sleep is a bit harder for me. It continues to be a bit of a challenge. It's up and down. I suspect sleep is more genetic and, there are certain environmental things that affect it or whatever. Always been a light sleeper. My body feels lighter. That's the way I'll describe it. And yeah, I lost a little bit of weight. I gained a chunk of it back. So, I'm about like 165-ish, which seems like a good weight for me. I used to have a bit of an arrhythmia in my heart, which I actually think was cerebellar, or if not cerebellar, brainstem, that area of the brain, the kind of autonomic nervous system area of the brain, which was somewhat malfunctional. My arrhythmia is gone entirely. I am physically in nowhere near as much pain, period. The journey sucks, right? The process is still painful, but the sheer amount of pain I was in, and I was just so used to it, I didn't even know what it was like, and I look back on myself now, I'm like, holy shit, how was I alive? Because I had no energy, like zero energy, period. Like I said, anxiety is gone, depression is gone. Now, as I'm working through some of the neurological side effects. Oh, and I should mention, like, my anger disorder is gone. Again, I used to be literally triggered, like PTSD style, by something, and I would fly off the fucking rail. I'd just be so angry for hours, like ridiculous anger, all gone. And I would say my fitness is better than ever. I still got some, like I said, a ways to go in the brain. I do have a follow-up meeting with a specialist in a couple months, actually. So I'm excited to see what kind of progress will show on that MRI. But I can tell you all the work I've put in has taught me, there is no part of the body that can't be healed. And we believe, for example, that neurons are static. You are born with them, then you die, right? They never change. In fact, they just decay. You have these myelin sheath disorders that, like MS or something like that, I don't know if it's MS or not, but myelin sheath disorders that, tears it down and then your neurons are fucked. You're just going to die, right? One of the earliest pieces of inspiration for me was seeing research in like 80-year-old dementia patients doing neuroplasticity exercises and watching their brains light up and function better than they have in years. I'm like, well, fuck, if they're 80 years old with dementia and are improving, I can certainly do it at 26, right? And I've experienced that firsthand. My cognition is, rapidly increasing. I can think about things in ways that I never used to before. I can feel things I never used to before. Like, I genuinely have empathy for other people now. I can't say that I did before. If I did, I didn't feel it. But now I can literally almost feel other people's emotional states. It almost seems, it's kind of creepy actually. It's a little bit like, almost like some ESP. Because like I can feel people out now in a way that I never could before. And all these things that were burdens for me for 2 decades, they're being lifted slowly. And it's been an arduous and grading process, but ultimately what I'd like my story to be is one of inspiration, because fortunately, I want to be careful here because everybody has damage. Everybody. But fortunately, a lot of people's damage is much more easily correctable than mine. All these little things add up. Better diet. Better exercise. Try to get better sleep. I really do think there's something, physically speaking, to that energy body thing. And that's the frustrating one, because I have no idea what the hell that is. But I think it's there. Cardio, sunlight, these little things, they just add up. And through all of these methods, people can get better. And you can heal, especially the brain, because we have this fatalistic attitude about the brain where, you're born with it, it develops, then you're fucked. It just declines. It just gets worse. Bullshit. People are much more powerful and capable than we realize. And that's what to any of the listeners, I want to, speak to you guys directly. Please invest in yourself. If you're stressed, take some time off. Get outside more. Nature. Look to eat more fruits and vegetables. Try to work out a little bit. Attempt to improve sleep. And trust me, I still have sleep problems. It's not easy. But do try. Maybe look at some neurocognitive exercises if you have some time. Expand your mind, right? All these things, you have the power, right? You are not disempowered. You are capable. And that is something that I think a lot of people need to hear. We're so beaten down, right? People are so fucked up right now. And I see it, especially in Macon, where I'm at. You just look and you see, and you just see the agony in people's face. People are beaten down and defeated. You're not. You can find happiness. You can find health. I will never claim it's easy. It certainly isn't. But it is possible. And you are worth it. All of you are worth it. So please invest in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a good message to leave on, right? And you're sort of living proof of it, right? And you don't have to do, like you said, not everyone gets the same things you did, right? And not everyone needs to follow the same path to quote unquote correction that you did as well. Even small things, like you said, changing your diet, exercising more could even help marginally. And that might be enough for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, just little things add up over time. It's consistency. And you will feel the results, right? Like I said, I tried a whole lot of weird shit. Like I said, I dipped my toes into prayer. I dipped my toes into the spiritual community and all that shit. And I can tell you, there's so many shysters, there's so many charlatans out there who offer solutions that do nothing for you and who prey upon people who are desperate for healing because those communities attract desperate people. And the sick thing is there's some things there. Like, for example, I found that burning sage, I don't know if there's like an aromatherapeutic aspect to it, but something about burning sage, you know, whether it's like a blood flow thing or some sort of molecular interaction in the body, I was like, this elevates my mood. And in fact, it makes it easier to concentrate on the exercise I'm doing. So I'm going to keep doing it. Right. So that was something I found in like the spiritual movement or whatever, maybe like some Native American inspired stuff. I'm not sure exactly where I got it. But then there's these people who are like, well, you just got to meditate for 5 hours a day and all your problems will go away, and buy my course on fucking meditation and shit like that. I'm like, that's garbage, right? If meditating, and I've used it for a while now, but if it works for you, use it. But if it doesn't, don't waste your time, right? If you don't feel, you are the arbiter of your own health, right? When you try something, and I would encourage people to try, including weird shit, outside the mainstream, outside the norm, whatever works. Because if you want to be better, you will do anything it takes, anything that can help, right? But if you don't feel it working, if you try it a couple times and it's doing nothing, ditch it, right? Don't let people manipulate you because you're hurting, right? Because you are more vulnerable when you're hurting. And that's the sick thing with these communities is that, you know, whether it's whatever it might be, especially in religion, right? You know, pray all your problems away. Well, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. It simply doesn't. If it helps you, continue to do it. If you see results, continue to do it. But if it doesn't, don't give your money to some dickbag who's lying to you, right? And so that has been my particular, again, expanding of my horizons or whatever to anything. And if it works for you, use it. Just keep doing it. And if you see results, keep investing.
Yep. Yeah, it's just personal investment is probably the best way to get through it. I think the dogs in the background have something to say. Jason?
Yeah, there's like a husky or something like 2 doors down from me that just continuously barks all day, every day. And I've tried, you know, the window's shut or whatever, it still comes through. So my apologies.
I'm kidding. It's fine. It's just, it's way in the background is what it sounds like. All right. I think we don't want to dig too more, cause, we could go for hours probably on this.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you wanted to leave off for the listeners as we sort of wrap up here? We already talked about, the self-help aspect, but what else do you think you need to know?
So this is one concept I did learn from the spiritual community, and that is intuition. Everybody has it. Everybody has the ability to kind of lean in when you're perhaps alone, when you're perhaps understanding. But the journey always starts by looking at yourself honestly, and I will stress, as honest as you can, because your brain will fight you, right? It's not like you will have the answers immediately. Your brain will fight you for a number of things. But there are things that you can be doing, particular things, whether it's, again, for the more perhaps spiritually inclined people, I should maybe visit a physical shop and invest in some plants or some crystals or something, or maybe I should pray, or maybe I should meditate. Or on the scientific side, it's like, well, maybe I should be improving my diet. I've seen the studies on nutrition. Maybe I should be, doing more cardio or something like that. Listen to yourself first, right? And give yourself space and time. Pay attention to you. A lot of people, especially men in modern society, are so distracted by the burden that you bear. Whether it's, you have to be, you have to be dad. You have to be the big brother supporting family. You have to be a loving partner who is, maybe pulling the weight in the relationship. You have a job. And you always have the omnipresent technology that distracts you. Take a few minutes a day to tune into yourself. And if you assess what you see honestly, you might say, okay, well, I'm actually feeling pretty fine today. That's fine. But you might find, oh shit, things feel wrong. And don't invalidate your feelings, right? Your emotions, your feelings are a huge component of who you are. And so those are serious, even if they are directional. So invest in yourself. Find a way. And the reason I say this is, as everybody can do this, society can get a lot better when each of you invest in yourself just a little bit. Because as you heal, as you open up, as you understand that life does not have to be constant pain, then the world can change. Literally. And it starts with you.
All right. Yeah, I got nothing to add there. Chase, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me as always, Daniel.
For sharing. Obviously it was probably tough. You didn't have to do that. We seriously had no plans for this podcast. Chase didn't even know he was going to be the only one. So
yeah,
we sort of fell into that topic. But yeah, I think people can at least take away something from that. No matter where they are in their own journey, obviously you're going to take away different things. But I think everyone can take at least something away from that, as far as how they can progress their life in the future. All right. I think we'll head out. We don't want to, go too long here. Otherwise, we'll probably never end.
No, it's also a really heavy episode, so yeah. that one's gonna take some recovery.
Yeah, and I'll put a warning at the beginning or in the description.
Oh yeah,
some
definitely.
People, just in case some people don't want to slide into that sort of part of the world. But thank you, Chase. We'll talk again, I guess.
Absolutely.